They had never seen anything like it. A colony of emperor penguins, one of the most social and coordinated species in the animal kingdom, was displaying behavior that left their keepers completely puzzled. The entire colony was gathering around one specific spot every single day, but what the hidden cameras revealed was something that would change everything we know about penguin intelligence and compassion. Because in that moment, in a state-of-the-art penguin habitat, thousands of miles from Antarctica, instinct turned into something else. Something we don't often talk about in the animal world. Empathy, sacrifice, and a kind of community devotion that doesn't need words. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, hit like, and turn on notifications, because the story you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about animal societies and the bonds they form in captivity. The Antarctic Research Center at the Denver Aquarium was home to one of the most successful emperor penguin colonies in North America. The facility housed 43 penguins in a massive climate-controlled habitat that replicated the harsh conditions of their natural Antarctic environment, complete with sub-zero temperatures, artificial snow ice formations, and a sophisticated filtration system that maintained the pristine water quality these magnificent birds required. Dr. Melissa Chen had been the head penguin keeper at the facility for over 12 years and had developed an intimate understanding of penguin behavior, social structures, and individual personalities. She had started her career as a marine biology graduate student studying penguin colonies in the wild, and had spent 2 seasons in Antarctica observing emperor penguins in their natural habitat, before transitioning to captive animal care. The Denver colony was special not just because of its size, but because of its remarkable social cohesion. The penguins had established complex hierarchies, formed lasting pair bonds, and successfully raised over 60 chicks during Melissa's tenure. The colony included several generations of birds from elderly patriarch penguins who had lived at the facility for over 15 years, to young adults who had been born and raised in the habitat. Melissa knew each penguin individually, recognizing them by subtle differences in their markings, posture, and personality traits. There was Winston, the dominant male who led the colony's daily activities. Luna, the clever female who had figured out how to manipulate the automatic feeding system, and dozens of others, each with their own quirks and social relationships. The penguins followed predictable daily routines. They would gather for communal feeding sessions, huddle together for warmth during the coldest parts of the day, engage in elaborate courtship displays during breeding season, and take turns diving in the deep pool that served as their primary source of exercise and enrichment. But in early October, something changed dramatically in the colony's behavior patterns that had been consistent for years. Melissa first noticed the unusual activity during the morning inspection, when she observed that the entire colony had gathered in the northwestern section of the habitat, an area that was typically used only for individual rest and grooming. The penguins weren't just randomly congregating, they were arranged in a perfect circle, with the older, more dominant birds on the outside and younger individuals toward the center. They remained in this formation for over 2 hours, making soft vocalizations and occasionally preening each other in what appeared to be a highly organized social ritual. At first, Melissa thought the behavior might be related to seasonal changes or breeding preparation. Emperor penguins were known for complex courtship displays and social behaviors that could appear unusual to human observers, but this gathering was different from anything she had seen in over a decade of working with the species. The circular formation repeated the next day at exactly the same time and in precisely the same location. The penguins would complete their morning feeding, then waddle purposefully to the northwestern corner and arrange themselves in the same organized pattern. They would remain there for hours, making gentle calls and displaying what could only be described as reverent behavior. Dr. Chen began documenting the behavior with photographs and video, recording the formation from multiple angles and noting which individual penguins participated and how they positioned themselves within the circle. She consulted her extensive research library and reached out to colleagues at other penguin facilities around the world, but no one had ever observed similar behavior. The mysterious gatherings continued for a full week, with the colony showing remarkable consistency in their timing, location, and formation. Melissa noticed that the penguins seemed to be focusing their attention on the center of the circle, but there was nothing visible there, just the same artificial ice and snow that covered the rest of the habitat. It was James Rodriguez, the facility's senior marine biologist and surveillance specialist, who suggested reviewing the extensive hidden camera footage that monitored the penguin habitat 24 hours a day. The aquarium maintained a sophisticated surveillance system with dozens of cameras positioned throughout the exhibit, including several high-definition night vision cameras that could capture detailed footage even in the darkest conditions. James had been working with the surveillance system for over 8 years and had used the footage to document breeding behaviors, territorial disputes, and the complex social interactions that occurred when the facility was closed to visitors. The cameras had captured thousands of hours of natural penguin behavior, providing valuable research data and ensuring the health and safety of the colony. What they discovered when they reviewed the footage from 2 weeks earlier changed everything and provided an explanation for the colony's mysterious behavior that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. The hidden cameras had captured an incident that none of the staff had witnessed during their regular daily inspections. In the early morning hours, when the facility was closed and no human activity was scheduled in the penguin area, one of the colony's most beloved members, an elderly female named Sage, had collapsed suddenly while walking across the ice. Sage was 22 years old, making her one of the oldest penguins in captivity and a respected matriarch of the colony. She had successfully raised 12 chicks over her lifetime and was known for her gentle, nurturing behavior toward younger penguins. She served as a mentor and protector for newly hatched chicks and was often seen guiding inexperienced young adults in proper feeding and social behaviors. The footage showed Sage stumbling and falling onto the ice, where she remained motionless. The other penguins immediately noticed her distress and began gathering around her, making soft vocalizations and gently touching her with their beaks. Several of the dominant males positioned themselves protectively around Sage, while the females began what appeared to be comforting behaviors. Over the course of several hours, captured in remarkable detail by the night vision cameras, the colony maintained a constant vigil around Sage. They took turns standing close to her body, sharing their warmth and making gentle calls that seemed designed to comfort both Sage and each other. By dawn, Sage had died peacefully, surrounded by her colony family. What happened next was unprecedented in penguin behavior research and challenged everything scientists thought they knew about animal funeral rituals and grief processing. The colony did not abandon Sage's body or allow the facility staff to remove it. Instead, they began an elaborate ceremony that lasted for 3 full days. The penguins arranged themselves in concentric circles around Sage, with the oldest and most dominant birds forming the outer ring, and younger penguins positioned toward the center. They took turns approaching Sage's body, touching her gently with their beaks and making soft farewell vocalizations. Individual penguins would step forward from the circle, approach Sage, perform what could only be described as a personal goodbye, then return to their position in the formation. The ceremony was orderly, respectful, and deeply moving, with each penguin appearing to understand their role in the ritual. The colony maintained this vigil for 72 hours, never abandoning their positions except for brief feeding breaks, during which they would quickly return to the circle. Some penguins brought small pieces of ice or fish to place near Sage's body, as if offering gifts to honor her memory. On the 3rd day, the penguins performed what appeared to be a burial ceremony, working together to gradually cover Sage's body with snow and ice until she was completely hidden from view. They then remained in their circular formation for several more hours, making what sounded like memorial vocalizations. When the ceremony was complete, the colony dispersed and resumed their normal daily activities, but they had created something unprecedented, a penguin memorial site that they continued to visit and honor. The hidden camera footage provided Melissa and her team with extraordinary documentation of animal grief ritual behavior and the existence of complex emotional bonds within penguin societies. The behavior was so sophisticated and obviously intentional that it challenged fundamental assumptions about animal consciousness and the capacity for emotional processing in non-human species. Dr. Chen spent hours reviewing every frame of the footage, consulting with animal behaviorists around the world, and preparing a detailed analysis of what they had witnessed. The scientific community was amazed by the footage, which provided the first documented evidence of elaborate funeral rituals in captive penguins. Dr. Robert Steinberg, a renowned expert in animal cognition from Yale University, called the footage revolutionary proof that penguins possess far more complex emotional and social intelligence than previously recognized. The organized nature of the ceremony and the obvious understanding of death and memorial behavior suggests cognitive abilities that we never imagined existed in these species. News of the discovery spread rapidly throughout the zoological and scientific communities. Penguin researchers from institutions around the world requested copies of the footage to study this unprecedented example of animal funeral behavior. The footage became an invaluable resource for understanding penguin social structures, emotional capacity, and the evolution of ritual behavior in animal societies. The aquarium administration decided to share the story with the public through a carefully crafted educational program that honored Sage's memory while highlighting the remarkable intelligence and emotional depth of the penguin colony. Visitors were invited to learn about penguin social behavior and to observe the memorial site that the colony had created. The response from visitors was overwhelming. People were moved to tears by the footage of the penguin funeral ceremony and inspired by the obvious love and respect the colony had shown for their deceased member. Many visitors left flowers and notes near the penguin exhibit, expressing their admiration for the depth of emotion displayed by the birds. Children were particularly affected by the story, asking questions about animal emotions and expressing wonder at the idea that penguins could feel sadness and love in ways similar to humans. The educational impact was profound, as visitors gained new appreciation for the intelligence and emotional complexity of animals. The memorial site became a focal point for the colony's daily activities. The penguins continued to visit the spot where Sage was buried, performing abbreviated versions of their original ceremony and maintaining the area with obvious care and intention. They would arrange pieces of ice in decorative patterns, bring small offerings of fish, and spend quiet time at the site. Melissa documented the ongoing memorial behavior, noting that different penguins would visit at different times of day, and that the visits often coincided with significant events in the colony, such as the hatching of new chicks or the introduction of new penguins to the group. 6 months after Sage's death, the colony welcomed 3 new chicks born to different breeding pairs. The hidden cameras captured remarkable footage of the adult penguins bringing the chicks to visit Sage's memorial site, as if introducing the new generation to their honored ancestor. The behavior suggested that the memorial had become an integral part of the colony's cultural traditions, and that knowledge of Sage's importance was being passed down to younger generations. This cultural transmission of memorial behavior provided additional evidence of sophisticated cognitive abilities and social learning in penguins. A year later, the colony performed another funeral ceremony when Winston, the dominant male, died of old age. The ritual was nearly identical to Sage's ceremony, suggesting that the behavior was not a one-time anomaly, but an established cultural practice within the colony. The aquarium created a permanent research program dedicated to studying penguin social behavior and emotional intelligence, using the extensive footage library to understand the complex relationships and cultural practices that existed within the colony. The research attracted scientists from around the world and positioned the facility as a leading center for penguin behavior studies. Veterinary schools began incorporating the penguin footage into their curricula, teaching future animal care professionals about the emotional needs of their patients and the importance of understanding behavior in the context of complex social relationships. Animal behaviorists used the discovery to advocate for enhanced animal welfare standards and greater recognition of animal sentience. The story inspired changes in penguin care practices at zoos and aquariums worldwide, with facilities developing new protocols for recognizing and supporting animals through grief processes, and creating environments that allowed for natural memorial behaviors. Years later, the Denver penguin colony continued to maintain their memorial sites and perform funeral ceremonies for deceased members. The behavior had become so well established that new penguins introduced to the colony quickly learned the rituals and participated in the ceremonies. Melissa Chen, who had devoted her career to understanding penguin behavior, often reflected on how Sage's death had revolutionized scientific understanding of animal emotions. The discovery had proven that complex grief ritual behavior and cultural transmission existed throughout the animal kingdom in ways that scientists were only beginning to appreciate. The hidden camera footage of Sage's funeral ceremony became one of the most important pieces of evidence in the ongoing scientific discussion about animal consciousness and the universal nature of love loss and memorial behavior across species. If this remarkable story of animal intelligence and community devotion touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share it with someone who believes that emotional bonds and memorial traditions exist throughout the natural world. Sometimes the most profound discoveries come from simply watching and learning from the animals in our care, and sometimes the greatest teachers are those who show us that love, respect, and remembrance transcend the boundaries between species. Sage's legacy lives on not just in the memorial site maintained by her colony, but in the revolutionary understanding of animal emotions that her death helped reveal, proving that the capacity for grief, love, and remembrance exists in the most unexpected places.